Muchas gracias, José Luis.
Thank you very much, José Luis. And now we're going to start with today's keynote lectures. As we said before, our first speaker will be Adela Cortina. She is a philosopher and emeritus professor at the University of Valencia, a member of the Royal Academy of Moral and Political Sciences, director of the Etno Foundation and winner of the 2014 Jovellanos International Essay Prize. She's published more than 50 books on the theory of ethics. All these books are based on a firm desire to apply ethics to life. Her lecture today is entitled Ethics and Technology. So please welcome Adela Cortina.
¿Seguro?
Can you hear me? Okay, excellent. Well, good evening, and thank you very much for this invitation to be here with you this evening in this extraordinary conference, in this extraordinary science festival, when we're going to be analysing scientific questions, what science is, how it works, what are the major contributions that science is making and has been making to humankind since time immemorial. It's been a fantastic experience for all of us, and of course it's wonderful to be here in the marvellous city of San Sebastian. It's a real gift to be here. Now, I would like to really thank the organisers for not just focusing on science and the scientific method, but also for taking humanities into account as well when they're organising the different contributions. And I'm going to be giving the perspective from the humanities. And this is fundamental because today there is not one single problem in the cosmos, down here on our Earth, that doesn't need to be solved by all scientific disciplines, by all people. There is no one scientific discipline that can solve a problem. We need to accumulate the gathered wisdom of all different people. And it's a shame that it's true. A friend of mine often says that it's a shame that the world has problems, but universities have departments. And when you go to a department of a university with a problem, they say, no, this isn't the right department. We don't need that. What we need is a joint effort by every single being on this planet. And it's really important for science to have a closer relationship with humanities. And this is what I'm here to talk about. I work with scientists. I work with people from the Polytechnic University, and we always learn so much from each other. And we reach, I think, very important conclusions thanks to our collaboration. I remember on one occasion, one of my lecturers, who was a fantastic lecturer, he said that his definition of philosophy was that, or could be at least, that philosophy could be the science with which and without which you just end up exactly the same. So I think that philosophy really needs to get its hands dirty and start working side by side with science in order to resolve important problems for mankind and womankind, humankind. So it's wonderful to have, I'm very grateful that you've invited me here to talk to you about humanities and particularly ethics. Now, there's often a distinction is often made between science and humanities. Science is always seen as being rational, as something which offers knowledge, whereas the field of humanities is much more subjective. It doesn't really provide knowledge, it just talks about values. And that separation has been made between facts and values, as if science had nothing to do with values, and is really only connected to facts. But that is completely false, which is why I wanted to talk about a theory which isn't my theory. It's a theory developed by some German people, which is called the theory of the interests of knowledge. There is no knowledge that is neutral. All knowledge, whether it be scientific knowledge or humanities knowledge, are governed by certain interests. And what are these interests? In the case of science, it's the interest of having dominion over external and internal nature. And we need to use a method. And we need to use a method which is always a method of verification, checking of the data. We need to make sure that we do check our data. The limit of science is the limit of what is possible, because you can always speculate beyond that, and that's something that I'm very interested in. And we have to imagine things, of course we do, but at the end of the day, the limits of science are the possible experiences, and we need to be able to check our facts, provide facts, and then check those facts. And this is the scientific method that should be applied there. Now, this is the interest of science, the interest of dominion. Humans can't put death back. We can't resolve the problems of climate change at the moment, and we need scientific experimentation in order to try to do these things. This is an interest, but there's another interest, which is not just the interest of dominion, which is an interest which enables us to innovate. There are other interests, and that is the interest of humanities, which is also rational in nature. There's been a general conviction that the only rationality worth taking into account was scientific rationality, and then the ethics of politics, the area of ethics and politics was very subjective, in which everyone can have their own opinion. This isn't true. There is rationality in science, of course there is, with scientific knowledge, but there's also another type of rationality, which is the rationality which is interested in understanding each other. And in the case of science, I know you talk about subject and object. The science uses objects to try to prove things, but when we're talking about the rational interest of humanities, the question is not the relationship of objects and subjects. The question is subjects who are related to each other and who try to understand each other, try to interpret each other, who try to build each other, so they can decide where to move forward in their lives and in science as well. Now, there's a recent film about Oppenheimer. If we think about that, we can see that any type of scientific research is interesting. Yes, they are all interesting, but we need to be quite careful with some of them, because some things can give rise to catastrophic inventions, such as the atomic bomb, for example. And when we're talking about things like this, we need to be very, very careful with how science uses what it discovers. But who has to decide what science is used for? Now, it would be great if we could actually have a discussion about that here, because should it be scientists who need to decide what they can or where they can apply their discovery, or should it be that scientists have to consult the rest of humanity, civil society? And more in scientific research, in the field of research, people are saying that scientists should be researching the areas that are of interest to humankind, and they should use that as the basis for deciding in what direction their research should go. Now, those of us who together try to understand each other, this is a very, very important type of rationality, the rationality of understanding, the rationality of trying to reach agreements about what to do with science, what to do with our lives, what to do with our humanity. Which is why the combination of this type of science that needs to have its limits in experience and rationality that tries to understand each other in some kind of intersubjectivity, to have a relationship between subjects, and tries to direct science and direct all of our relationships to where? Well, where to? Yes, that's a very important question, but we need to think about it from the perspective of philosophy. Where do we want to go to? Where are we heading? And these German authors, that Habermas, that I mentioned earlier, said that the three interests of knowledge, one would be the interest of dominion, which enables predictions to be made. The other would be the interest in understanding, in the mutual relationship, which enables us to know what it is that we want to achieve all together. And there's another basic interest, and that is the interest in emancipation. The interest in creating an emancipated society. A society in which human beings can look each other in the eye without having to drop our gaze in order to demand our rights. The interest in emancipation is the interest which has set in motion the scientific interest, the interest in understanding us, in order to have a cosmopolitan society one day in which we are all included, in which no one feels that they are an outsider and no one feels that they are discriminated against. These three interests of knowledge have been directing humans over history, throughout history, and they have given rise to evolution, which we call progress. We have progressed. I mean, I really do believe that humankind has progressed. Knowledge has progressed as well, but it has progressed because it has taken into account these three sides, which I think are absolutely essential. Scientific knowledge, mutual understanding, the attempt to reach agreements, and then the construction of an emancipated society in which we can all look each other directly in the eye. And that would be the key that these authors mention, and I think is fundamental. At the current moment, what's the major challenge? The challenge which is posed to ethics. Now, I'm going to talk about ethics a lot, of course, but I think it's really important to focus on one of the most pressing issues of our time. And I'm sure you are all thinking it's climate change or it's war. And these are, of course, fundamental issues, but there is another issue, and that is the ethics of artificial intelligence. Ethics and techno-science. Now, the ethics of artificial intelligence. We're talking about technoscience. We are living in the era of technoscience, and artificial intelligence is one of the main powers which could be incredibly beneficial, but as always could also be incredibly dangerous. Now, very, very briefly, after just giving you this sort of conceptual framework for you about the difference between science and humanities. But within that conceptual framework, I would like to talk specifically about artificial intelligence today and what's happening with it. When we talk about the ethics of artificial intelligence, and there's been a lot of articles published about this, the first thing that we have to ask ourselves is it the ethics of intelligent systems that have values on the basis of which they make decisions? And we're seeing that increasingly we have deep learning, we have creative thinking. Machines can learn, and they can learn more and more. And they learn by incorporating values. So do machines have their own code of ethics on the basis of which they make decisions? I don't know if you will remember the experiments that are currently always being carried out with autonomous driving cars or driverless cars. They need to make decisions. And there's always, people often talk about the moment in which a car has to decide whether to run over a young person, an old person, a sick person, and the car has to decide because it's an autonomous car. Now, this is actually making philosophers think long and hard about this, because what is an autonomous car? Is an autonomous car a being able to make decisions? Now, our colleagues at the Valencia Polytechnic University say that they are. They're not a being, but they are objects that can make a decision on the basis of their own values. Experiments of this type have been carried out to try and see what are the values on the basis of which autonomous cars make their decisions. And the conclusion is, and this is the important thing here, we need to know what those values are. What are those values upon which they base their decisions? Intelligent systems have incorporated a series of values. They decide on the basis of those values, or have we not reached there yet? I don't think we're there yet myself, and I think that the ethics of artificial intelligence is still the ethics that human beings use in our interactions with intelligent machines. to making sure that the machines are still at the service of human beings and that they are really useful. Now, this is a really important issue because there's a lot of fear about artificial intelligence because it's all surrounded by a lot of myths and legends, which gives us the impression that we're going to, invent beings that are going to hurt us, dominate us, and we have to be, really careful because we're going to create our own destroyers, these amazing machines that are going to end up killing us. We have to be really careful when we talk about things like this. What are we talking about? Are we talking about whether intelligent systems have ethics, or is it the system of ethics that we have to try to defend ourselves and try to make the best possible use of these intelligent systems? And in my talk, I'd just like to talk about 3 types of artificial intelligence that we need to take into account in order to know where we are and what it is that's at stake. There are 3 types of artificial intelligence. We have super intelligence, so the world of super intelligence. We have general intelligence, which is similar to human intelligence, which can be used to solve general problems, and special intelligence, very specific intelligence, which is able to just resolve very specific problems, but much better and much more efficiently than human beings, because artificial intelligence has can take into account huge amount of data, has huge computing power that human beings simply don't have. And this is where this very interesting idea came up, which left everybody absolutely astonished. The idea was the following: how is it possible of Kasparov to have lost against Deep Blue when Kasparov was the absolute pinnacle of amazing chess player? I mean, how could he possibly have lost to an artificial intelligence program? Well, the answer is that that program's computing power was much greater in a very specific thing, but only that one thing. But we need to talk about all 3 types of artificial intelligence, and I think this is one of the main issues of our time. Let's look first at super intelligence, or splendid intelligence, we can call it. Now, people who talk about that are generally transhumanists and post-humanist people. Transhumanism and post-humanism has kind of on the rise. Recently, there are a lot of publications about this issue. They're surrounded by legends. And the core would be that human beings are able to create intelligence which is far superior to human intelligence. That's what they say. And how could we do this? Well, because intelligence can in fact be passed on to some kind of substrate, a silica substrate, and that would mean that it would have an infinitely superior capacity for intelligence than we have at the moment. So it would be onto a silicon substrate. Now, there's no agreement, really. There's no agreement at the moment between the techno-scientists about whether or not it's going to be possible to reach that sort of intelligence, the super intelligence. And of course, if we look at the scientific method, we see that it's really important to have the scientific basis that are solid enough to say that something is possible. Not maybe immediately, maybe not even tomorrow or in the next decade, but it is possible. Because otherwise, we're running the risk of, talking about a series of inventions and research and trying to get people to invest in them just to get money. Now, we all know the ideology of Silicon Valley. There's a series of investors who are investing in these issues because they're saying that this is what the future is all about. You have to be really careful when we are investing in the thing of the future, because the first thing we need to see and to check, is this scientifically plausible? Is it scientifically feasible? Is it possible? That would be the very, very first thing that we have to do with regard to super intelligence. Now, the second thing we need to take into account is that is it actually something that we should be doing? Should we really be working towards having a world in which there are two types of being? Because basically what we'll be doing is creating a new species. It won't be a human species, it will be a species of superior beings. And is that really in our best interest, to create a world in which there are two types of beings, human beings and superior beings? I don't know, is that something we would want? Maybe it would be just a world in which, these superior beings were the masters and we were the slaves. Post-humanists say that this is not only possible, but it's a moral duty. We have a moral duty to work towards creating these superior beings because they would understand much better what would happen. They would be able to solve problems much better than we would, and they would give us a better future. The question is an important one. Is it a moral duty to work towards creating super intelligence? And I'm talking from the perspective of ethics. Is it or is it not a moral duty? And it's a shame that we can't actually discuss this, so I can hear what you think about this, but I think it's a shame that we still have in the world so much hunger, so much poverty, people who are trying to cross the Mediterranean into Europe and can't do that. And with all these problems we have in the world, why are we investing so much money in trying to develop superintelligence? I don't think it's the best use of our money. But that's a debate that's a very important debate, and I think somewhere it should be had, this debate. Now, the second type of intelligence will be general intelligence, and this is the intelligence like human intelligence. Now, I have to recognize that I was really happy when I realized that, human intelligence is important. And it's important because human beings have a biological body. And having a biological body is absolutely fundamental in order to be able to understand things. It's important to have common sense as well. And if we talked about a silicon substrate, then we wouldn't be able to make decisions if we existed just on a silicon substrate. We wouldn't be able to take or make ethical and moral decisions. In order to have feelings, impressions, in order to be able to have values, we need to have a body. We need to have common sense. Sometimes we talk about the Aristotelian philosophy. People say, no, that's just a philosophy of common sense, meaning it's nothing at all. But quite the opposite. The most important thing that we have as human beings is common sense. Machines that don't have a body, that don't have the ability to have a body, because they don't have the possibility of feeling, to understand values, to feel emotions, then they can't have common sense. And therefore, they can't have the general intelligence, which consists of trying to solve very different types of problems based on this type of intelligence.
And this is something we're now working on, and you may know that we're working very seriously in achieving this general intelligence. This is what we do when we work fundamentally in artificial intelligence, of course, but the thing would be, that intelligence. Could that intelligence understand well the world, or in order to understand the world properly, do we need a body? Do we need to have a body? Well, we need to have a body and we need to have common sense. But if it were possible for those intelligences, for that intelligence to make decisions, to feel, what values would be embed in them? What are values that we would give them? Because we are in a multicultural environment and universe where we have different values. Which would be the values that we would give this intelligence? From which ethical theories would we move forward? And the main question here we're talking about lately, if we created that type of intelligence, could it be said that they are individuals, people, autonomous people that have dignity and not just a price, that have rights? Well, this is what we are now discussing. Would they be citizens in our political communities? Would they have the right to vote? Could they have a political position? Could they run for an election? Well, this is happening, right? As you may know, there are some areas like in Japan, etc., different places in the world where we have artificial intelligence running for elections, and they were voted, right, by citizens, humans, right? This is precisely because it was said that, precisely because they don't have the capacity to assess things, they won't be they will be looking for the common good. they will be 100% objective. They will be objective, right? They won't be biased. And people really like that idea. You know, thinking that politicians would work objectively, looking for the common good, not just defending their own interests. And this is why they had very good results in the elections. And you may know that lately the European Parliament was talking about the creation of electronic individuals. Well, because we have robots, and we have intelligence systems now that could be recognized as individuals, as citizens, and therefore they would have rights and they would have duties as well, and they would have responsibilities. And when this idea was mentioned back in 2016, many scientists said, oh, that is going to be impossible. That would be impossible. We cannot have electronic people because the only possible people are humans. Humans that have dignity and that don't just have a price on them or a cost. The problem is very serious, right? Because, well, we're opening new markets for the future, and many technoscientists said, well, we are interested in trying to get a series of intelligent systems, intelligent beings that are not just intelligent but also have emotions, have feelings, and that they're capable of working in a social world to defend that world. And therefore, in that case, they would be citizens with full rights, and they will have the same rights we have as humans. They wouldn't be human rights, right? We're a bit obsessed with human rights. We all have human rights, but well, only humans have human rights. But if we talk about the rights of animals, they wouldn't be human rights, right? And if we talk about the rights of machines, they're not human rights. That's a different type of rights. But this is an open discussion, right? We have more and more these type of intelligent systems there with emotions, with feelings. And what will happen in that case? Would they be part of our world? Will they be able to vote? Will they be able to make decisions? Will they become members of our political community? I have to say that so far, we don't have super intelligence. We don't have this type of general intelligence either. The only type of intelligence, artificial intelligence, that is now up and running is the special general intelligence. I mean, the one that focuses on specific issues, medical issues, having to do with chairs, or maybe weather forecast. And I think that the way this intelligence is working is extraordinary. But we have this type of special intelligence. That's the only one we have so far. And we wouldn't be able to advance and progress if it wasn't thanks to the gathering of information and all the information we get from these intelligent systems. When it comes to making decisions from the medical viewpoint, in many different fields, we're getting so much information that it is essential for us. We wouldn't be able to make decisions without all of that information and data. Well, that is the only artificial intelligence we have so far. And whenever we talk about the ethics of artificial intelligence, we're just talking about that special artificial intelligence. And concerning that type of intelligence, well, we've got some very important measures that have been made here, because at a national and international level, and at the transnational level, we have some ethical orientation, some guidelines that have been created to handle that special intelligence, so that they are aligned with the ethics we would like the artificial intelligence to have. What would that ethics consist of? Well, I think that basically what would be key, the key was touched upon by the EU, and it stated that we needed to come up with an ethics, with the ethics of the trustworthy artificial intelligence, so that we can trust it, so that humans are not scared, thinking that we have some strange type of intelligence that is going to hurt us. No, it needs to be a trustworthy artificial intelligence. It needs to be at the service of humans. So the idea here is that they're based upon 4 principles of bioethics. Will be four principles that are essentials and have to do with justice, autonomy. They have four fundamental principles here concerning bioethics. And in this ethics of artificial intelligence, I think these principles, respect for autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice, are essentials. And each one of them is related to a number of different measures, which I think are fundamental. So very briefly, because time and life are a scarce resource, even more so in these type of events. I would like to mention here what would be the main points of this ethics, this code of ethics. First of all, the principle of beneficence. Any type of ethical system, any human activity needs to benefit humans' nature. If it's not beneficial, it would be an activity that cannot be carried out. It could be about drugs, armed trafficking, etc. These are not activities that are good from an ethical viewpoint. So an activity needs to be beneficial for humans, and this first principle needs to be respected. Any activity needs to be beneficial for humans and nature. Right now, we have intelligence systems, we have ChatGPT, etc., and all of them can be very beneficial to humans if we apply this ethical viewpoint. And that's why I insist in this capacity we have as humans to create the us that will help us to make decisions, so that decisions are not something that control us. So that would be the first principle, the principle of beneficence. The second principle would be the principle of non-maleficence, do no harm. This is essential, right? What does this mean concerning the ethics of artificial intelligence? Well, it needs to protect the privacy and ownership of data. Well, the special intelligence deals with a huge amount of data where privacy is at risk and the property, the ownership of the data is at risk. Then we have the principle of cautiousness. We need to be very cautious here, very careful here. Because whenever there is a risk and there is a danger, some moratoriums are adopted. We need to be very careful here, but the moratorium also has its drawbacks, which is loss of opportunities. And at the EU, it's been said that we're being very cautious when it comes to carrying out research, because we do not want to harm anyone. We want to respect this principle of non-maleficence, but while we do that in the US and China, they have no problem at all, and they move forward. First they do, and they act, and then they think and reflect about what they're doing. And the EU has always been very cautious. They've always respected this principle for a long time, and it has moratoriums and knows that we need to go for a trustworthy artificial intelligence. But of course we can be missing opportunities here, and we can lag behind concerning the development of new technologies, which is also key when it comes to making our own proposal concerning social economy. So this precautionary principle is essential. We also need to avoid the data being used wrong, and we also need to avoid to submit ourselves to solutions with algorithms in important matters for human beings. I think this is a risk that we need to be very careful with. I mean, if someone has or develops some solutions, right? Because artificial intelligence gives us solutions to our problems thanks to data mining, right? We have legal solutions, we have medical solutions, so we've got some tools, some solutions that are given to us, right? By analyzing a great deal of data, a huge amount of data. Then I apply that solution and that's it. well, that's that's very risky. I mean, when we're correcting the exams of students, that would be important, right? But even more so when we're going to be making medical decisions or legal decisions. If you already have all these elements given by the intelligence systems, why am I going to have to make an effort and think by myself? Yes, thinking is hard and it's tiring, and some people may wonder, why should I think? Well, this scares me because feeling comfortable is something we humans like, and whenever we're being given things that are already done, or well, we just apply them and we don't think, and this has been so in many fields, and this is immoral. Decisions, the intelligent systems can give us results, right? But they cannot make decisions. And I think that's a difference between an intelligent systems that gives us a solution and the people, humans. We are the ones making decisions. We are the ones that are responsible for our decisions. And that's why when we talk about electronic people, we need to be very careful. I mean, those beings cannot be responsible for anything. I mean, who is responsible? The person that's making a decision. And humans are characterized by our capability of making decisions and being responsible for them. And in that sense, we cannot just let artificial systems make decisions for ourselves, right? One more thing to finish this presentation. There's one topic I would like to touch upon. Let's be very careful with energy waste. All the tests that are being carried out with ChatGPT, all the training that's going on with that type of machine are generating an energy cost, right? And then you see we use this plastic, this water, plastic bottles of water, and we put them in a container to recycle them. But what happens with the huge amount of energy that we are spending or using to train these machines? It's huge. It's a huge amount of energy. And then we're talking about sustainability, and we're talking about sustainable development goals, and we say, well, let's be very careful with climate change. Our society needs to use resources, of course, but it needs to guarantee that resources are available for the coming generations. That's what sustainability is all about. But we are spending a great deal of energy here. And we're also using smartphones every day. So we're wasting a lot of energy. And nobody's saying this, and nobody's talking about this, and nobody's questioning this. And it should be something that we should be talking about. Let's be very careful with our digital fingerprint. And then to finish with this presentation, I will mention the other two principles concerning special intelligence. The principle of respect for the autonomy of individuals, and the principle of justice. The principle of respect for autonomy, the guidelines given by the EU stated that what was key for all these systems was that they should be at the service of the autonomy of people. Humans, people are autonomous, and it means that they need to be able to make decisions by themselves, and that they have the capacity to make those decisions taking into consideration the other human beings and their well-being, right? That's what autonomy is all about. I can act by myself, and when I do it, I can also take into consideration other human beings and their well-being, right? And I apply laws that I would like that were applied to the whole of mankind. That would be the suggestion by Kant, right? Human beings think about themselves individually and about the whole of mankind. So the autonomy of the person, of the individual, should be at the core of this. And here we have some elements, like, for instance, a person needs to know whether if they're talking with a human being or a machine. We cannot say you're talking to a human and when they're talking to a machine. We're very used to calling someone on the phone and getting a machine replying, right? If you think that you're talking to a human being when you're talking to a machine, that's not right. You need to know that you're talking to a machine when you're talking to a machine, right? Concerning autonomy, data needs to be traceable and explained. So when we're making a decision on a basis of an algorithm, a person has the right to know how the algorithm works and where that information comes from, right? We can't have black boxes there. We've made this decision about you, but we need you to be patient. No, this is not possible. We need to explain things. So algorithms need to be traceable. That's fundamental. And last but not least, let's mention here the last principle, the principle of justice. The principle of justice needs to be applied to everything that can be beneficial to mankind. In the case of intelligent systems, they are being very beneficial, and these benefits are distributed in an unequal way, right? Not just in different countries, but also within each one of the countries. The benefits are being distributed unequally, and inequality is unfair. And on top of that, we fear that we're going to lose jobs. And we're not trying to compensate for that situation so that there is a transition to new jobs that is carried out calmly and always respecting the rights of the individuals and respecting the jobs of the individuals. I think that if we take all these principles seriously into consideration, I think that artificial intelligence will be welcome. The special intelligence that we now have, and maybe in the future we can have general intelligence or super intelligence that is developed. We'll see if that comes, and we'll see when that comes. But for the time being, let's just focus on the intelligence we now have, which is the special intelligence. And for that, we need to take into consideration that on December the 10th, 2023, we're going to be having the 75th anniversary of the Declaration of the Human Rights by the UN. So if we are taking human rights seriously, we need to think about all these benefits, and all these benefits need to be at the service of human beings. And this leads me to the Kantian formulation of the foundation of the physics of customs, saying that you need to act in a way that you treat mankind always as an end and never as a means. We need to treat all individuals as ends. They're valuable as they are. As such, we need to take into consideration the value of the people and put everything we have at their service, be it artificial intelligence or whatever. They have dignity and not just a price, and therefore they have an absolute value. And we also need to put all these benefits at the service of nature, because it's very vulnerable, and we need to support it because it has a huge value for us. Thank you so much for your attention.